Hello and welcome to the director's commentary for Boyhood: Road to the Super Bowl. I've been absolutely dying to make one of these. I've loved director's commentaries since I knew they were a thing, really. So to actually have a project that's worthy in my eyes of making a director's commentary is another bucket list item that I've ticked off since becoming sober. And we are going to press play in a second. I just want to take time to thank everybody for their support of this documentary. Alcohol Chains, Sorcio and Adam have been incredible. Sven, when they were the head of their position at Alcohol Change, who I initially pitched the documentary to. Everyone at Alcohol Change has been incredible. My family and friends have been incredible. I would like to thank my friends for attending the Sober Bowl in the first place. Harry, Reese, Leon, Dan, and Harry's partner for attending. You made that night incredibly special, and you made an event worth making a documentary for. So thank you as well for... And Kyle too. I almost forgot about Kyle, but that's about everybody, I think. I only invited 5 people, Jesus Christ. But yeah, you've all been incredible friends and family towards this documentary, and I hope the documentary does you justice and makes you as proud to be a mate of mine as I am to be a mate of yours. I think there's enough soppy crap, so why don't we get into the film portion of the director's commentary. Usually, obviously, the film would be playing out throughout all this, but it's 21 minutes long, so we can't really afford to pause it. As I said, the message here is my actions are my own, and my actions are my own fault, and I do second this message, because this documentary exists because I was an asshole. So, hopefully people realise I'm not as much of a bellend as I used to be. But yeah, this documentary has been the most rewarding 6 months of my life, and I'm so glad it's got the warm response it's got. And it's really allowed me to enjoy the developments I've made. This title sequence was really cool. What I was really going for was that this school book looked, because obviously it's my Boyhood club. And to get this school book look was really cool, and I really enjoyed it. This is a fisheye lens that I used for this scene, because I was really going for this immersive look, and I really wanted to hook the viewer in right away. And I've always wanted a fisheye lens, so it was a good excuse to get a item off my wish list. For the colour grading, I was really trying to go for this vintage, like 2007 Superbad look, which I really think I achieved, and it actually took the most takes out of everything in this entire film. It took about 10 to 12 takes just to get that right, and was my second attempt because the first attempt was just overexposed. Now this was the first heavy portion of the documentary, where I go through my incident at Beer Keller that inspires me to not drink anymore. This was where I really started to come along as an editor, I think, and a filmmaker. Fun fact, I actually bought my worst piece of equipment I've ever owned in the history of filmmaking during this thing, where I bought a tripod that also doubled as a selfie stick, obviously with the intention of filming myself with the camera on the selfie stick and walking around the area. But the camera just would not screw on to that selfie stick and has hit me in the head more times than I got shots with it. So I replaced it here with a GoPro and a chesty, which worked swimmingly compared to what I was using before. This is where the colour grading really came into fruition, because Solomon, who was my editing consultant on this, took me through this shot and says, what do you think is the most vital part here? And I kept pointing out the building, and I kept pointing out parts of the building, but he said, to me. No, what you actually got to pay attention to is the light on the pavement that you can see just in front of my controller there. It's too bright and it draws attention away from what you're talking about. So what I had to do, thanks to his words of wisdom, which were invaluable during this whole project, was just lower the highlights and lower like the visibility of it so it could draw more attention to the building. And that's when I really started noticing I've got a really developing my keen eye for this, and it was really enjoyable just to kind of come to terms with the fact that colour grading is not just so you can make your movie look like Superbad. It's so that you can tell the audience visually what they're supposed to be looking at. And that's learning that aspect of video editing and colour grading was very cool. I did the same thing here with the sky, where the sky was a bit too bright, so I lowered the highlights of the sky to kind of draw more attention to my face. I also colour boosted slightly to get more colour out of my face. And I think it works really well because I think the colour boost has unintentionally made the alcohol change portion of my t-shirt really pop, which I was really happy with. And it was really cool because that doing the sky was like the first time ever that I did like some important colour grading outside of our lessons. So to have the trust in myself already pretty early on in this process was quite a good experience for me and invaluable really. But it's like I said, initially these scenes were going to come one after the other. So I was going to have the chair incident, I was going to have my reflection of it, and then we were going to cut to a deleted scene, which I will talk about later. But I decided that it would work best and be more visually stimulating for you if I combined the two into one continuous scene. Which made it obviously a lot more difficult to deal with. But I think it was the best decision ultimately with the documentary because I didn't want my first video to come out and be overly bloated. So I just saw an opportunity to sort of trim the fat really. I think it worked really well, and I'm really proud of that decision that I made. But one thing I will say, when you are editing things like this, like making documentaries about your own life and your own mistakes, is, and it's something I wish I knew coming into this, is just make sure that you make time for yourself. Like make sure you take breaks, make sure you take time away from it. Because for me, there was quite a few times where hearing my mistakes over and over and over and over again because I was editing it and going through it with a fine-tooth comb, it became quite grating and it became quite depressing to be around sometimes because you're reliving your mistakes every minute of every day while you're working on the documentary. So that was when I kind of realised I've got to get out and have at least a few hours where I'm not thinking about it. And was kind of the first time I learned about the old adage work-life balance. Because initially when I thought I made this documentary, I thought, oh, I'm going to film the chair incident, I'm going to film the reflection, put them both in, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, that section's done. But just make sure you just take breaks so you're just not hearing your mistakes all the time if you wish to make a documentary like this. And I recommend it as well because despite the not glowing review I've just given it, it is quite cathartic. And that also rings true for this scene. This scene was the hardest thing I probably ever shot in my history of making anything. And it's not necessarily because it's like the complexity of it. It was just knowing what I was going in there shooting day to film was just ridiculously difficult. Like, knowing that I was going to be sat there filming basically arguably my biggest regret of my whole life was very, very difficult. And I put it off until last, which you'll probably not be surprised to know. So I went with sort of a harsh orange tube light here, because I wanted like a interrogation vibe, because this is when I put myself under the most scrutiny. So I wanted it to look like almost a police investigation, you know, like when they put the light in your face going, "Where is she?" That sort of thing I was kind of going for. Whether I achieved it or not, I have no idea. And I think it was quite another good lesson in my colour grading as well, because when I was colour grading this initially, the original shot was just literally just purely orange. Like, my whole face was like orange, where I've colour graded it to try and get a bit more natural light in there. And I think I've done a really good job of having that harsh interrogation light that I was going for in this scene. And hard editing wise for this was also, what can I do to sort of break it up a bit, because I didn't really have any location B-roll, and the location B-roll that I did shoot looked completely different in terms of lighting and visual. So I didn't really know what to use, and that's where the idea of putting music in came in to sort of stimulate the viewer, even though there's not really much to cut to here. But yeah, that's sort of how I came to those decisions, really. Obviously it was difficult because this is the biggest regret of my life. You know, and it's probably time to reiterate. If you've redeemed yourself or feel like you've had a really good redemption story, go out there and tell people, because you will feel better for it, even though talking about your highs and lows is going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to have to do. But if you feel like you've got a redemption story, grab a camera and go do it, or get in touch with me and we can sort it out. Because your redemption is worth telling, and your redemption is worth being happy about. Now, this was the happiest coincidence of my life. My favourite player signed his contract extension the day after I filmed the most depressing scene in the documentary. So yeah, I just made a little photo shoot thing there to break up the visual of his video, and a little blanking fill just to fill in the space a little bit. And obviously I talk about rebuilding here, so rebuilding through the draft. This is a really cool shot actually, of me just putting the GoPro in the drawer and shutting it. GoPro footage is a nightmare to grade, by the way, because nobody tells you how dark the bloody things are. So all the footage you see from this in with the GoPro needed to essentially be salvaged because of how dark it was. And and that is something that people need to tell you when you're filming with a GoPro. As you can see, I've tried to counteract it with my torch there, and I've done quite a nice job. Thankfully it was dark, so it looks like I've gone in the night and tried to load it, so it doesn't look too bad. But all this GoPro footage just needed to be colour graded to absolute hell just to be visible. Getting these testimonials though, now we get into the good stuff. Getting these testimonials was kind of surreal, really. Even though it was just like a cameo thing where I said, "Oh, could you give people a few words of wisdom to help them through their sobriety journey?" And they talked about me a lot more than I asked for, but when I was watching it, I was like, you know what? This is my Boyhood team and my favourite players. Let's keep them in. And I do think there are some valuable words of wisdom in these, even though they do talk about me a lot more than I asked. But there are some good words of wisdom. I think I've actually got this guy's cameo, uh, Fred Smith's cameo, on my wall, to kind of keep me motivated. That photo actually is colour graded. Actually, you might not think it is, but it is. So I drew a power node around his face, and I upped the gain and a little bit of the lift, just so that his face would be more visual. And I think I've done a really good job of that as my first experience with power nodes. So I was really proud to get this testimonial as well, because I didn't know about his struggle and his sobriety when I met him back in 2023. So to send him like a little message and just have that connection, even through just a cameo request, meant a lot to me to kind of have that conversation that we should have had when I met him. Because I'd only just decided to be sober at the time. It would have been June 2023 I got sober, and then September 2023 is when I went out. So it wasn't really the big part of my identity that it is now. The getting these of like little bits together of like just the year 2024 was incredible, because in the year previous there was always like one game to bring me out the darkest times in my life, and the seasons weren't particularly good. So to be able to have like one season where it's full of so many good memories that I couldn't pick one specifically was just great, and I really enjoyed it. For this final scene, really, I had to rush it because my friends were literally going to come on the train in about 2 hours. So I had to panic my way to finishing it off. And you can tell I wasn't dressed for how hot it was going to be, because I'm in a woolly hat and wearing a bomber jacket. I think I ended up just wearing like the commemorative boys jersey and some cargo pants or what have you. But this scene was quite cool because it gave me another chance to go for that super bad orange cool vintage colour grading that I was going for. And I think I've done a really good job of it again. One of the proudest parts of the colour grading here actually is the fact that I had to use the computer next to me to light my face because my room was so dark. And I basically had to hide the fact that the light was on my face, and I think I've done a really good job of that, and I'm really proud of how I've managed to do that, and I think it shows how well I've come when it comes to editing. I'm just really happy with the whole project, really, and to get glowing reviews from Alcohol Change and stuff like that before it's even come out is just incredible, and I've had an absolute blast making it, really. Fun fact, the final line from this scene actually, I'm probably saying it a bit early, but I'm going to say it anyway, actually comes from a deleted scene that I had in mind when I was going through my game day meals. And it's the line where we go, I started this journey with a can of Dr. Pepper and a favourite team. I ended this journey with a can of Dr. Pepper and a favourite team. That line was from the game day meals section that was eventually deleted from this documentary because I got frustrated with trying to put in a scene just for one line. I don't know if you've seen Welcome to Wrexham, but they had the same issue with Rob McElhenney in their documentary where they were trying to put the Rob McElhenney cameo in the Deadpool movie by any means necessary, and they just went, oh, you're just ruining the whole film by trying to put this one cameo in. And I felt like I was doing that with the Dr. Pepper line. So at the end of the day, the Dr. Pepper line was just moved to this scene, and the Game Day Meals scene was removed from the documentary. I will upload it at some point as a deleted scene for this documentary. But that will be when there's like a lull in content, for example. Because I do think it is a cool scene. It just did not fit the vibe of the documentary at all. Um, as well. So I was, yeah. So it was just not worth putting in because it just didn't match the energy really. And to do this scene was kind of like cathartic because there's a lot of symbolism in it. Like draped the most in burgundy and gold out of a whole film because I think that's basically just how my life went. I was like a bag of ass, and then I just draped myself in burgundy and gold and slowly started turning around. And I think there's a lot of symbolism. Obviously, if you've watched the documentary before watching this, you know why the hat's being worn. I've got glowing reviews about the hat actually. Everyone that's seen the documentary says that they love the hat, so I will be cracking it out more. And I also think I kind of look a bit like Josh Allen in like a bobble hat. So don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think there was something quite therapeutic because I just finished watching the New York Giants get absolutely spanked by us the day before I shot this as well. So I was particularly high because I was like, they knew I was filming this and they balled out. And I was like, that's what this team's about. That's why I love this team. And at least for the last 5 years, I've had one game where I've gone, that's why I love this team. I've had an awful week and they've clutched up. And that's why I love this team. And that's why this documentary was made. And to get an opportunity for 6 months just to make something that makes the world a better place and talk about my favourite team for the last 6 months has been the best experience in my life. And I just want to once again thank everybody for supporting this journey and supporting this documentary. This has been probably my proudest moment of my life is getting this documentary finished. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I've absolutely loved the fact that people have let Washington be a very public part of my journey and just enjoying the journey at all. And this is some Madden NFL 07 gameplay that I used because it was the game that got me into Washington. This pick was a nightmare to get. This took me 3 days to get that clip alone. And was by far actually the most tedious part of the doc. And slight sidetrack there, but yeah, I just decided to put the Madden NFL 07 gameplay in there because it's how my love for the team started when I was 6 years old. I'm 25 now. Wow. And this credits was just quite simple because I liked the idea of having a credits because it was professional and nice. And thank you for watching. I have absolutely loved recording this for you. It's been a bucket list item to have a project of mine, have a director's commentary, and I hope to see you in the future for more projects. If you're watching the documentary after watching this, then thank you for being more interested. If you're watching this following the documentary, then thank you for being more interested in the work I do.